Hey Alpha fam, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Commission. Today on Alpha Commission, we're just going to quickly go over the setup that we were talking about on Cardano ADA last week. Of course, there were several conditions that this down only falling knife had to meet in order to look interesting to me. And it has satisfied the majority of those conditions. So we're going to take a double look at Cardano to see if there's anything perhaps coming up in its chart which may make it look a little bit more interesting than the previous review. So to do so, let's just go ahead and throw on the lines that we began with last week. And if we look at this model that I've set up here, we can see that there are a couple areas which were pretty juicy looking, assuming that the market had continued to the downside. And those areas would have been, of course, 25 cents, maybe 17 cents, or just perhaps deeper in this area of the current zone that we are in, which itself is pretty juicy, being right there against the 886 fib retracement on the entire move. ADA has just pretty much been doing a full retracement, and we have no idea where the bottom is actually going to be, but these zones are pretty good targets if you're an ADA fan for the long term. Now, if we just zoom in, because this chart is just massive, massive amounts of distribution and dumpage over the last, greater than half a year, just almost just a direct down falling knife, we can see some very interesting things at play. Number one, right? The first condition here, and let me get a smaller time frame. Let's go to the 6 hour. Number one is that we did end up fully recovering that just that bottom kind of support, right? This is when I did the previous review where I was mentioning that ADA was just at the bottom of its range when in fact Bitcoin was at the middle or to the upper half of its range, right? So if we just kind of consider that this is perhaps a range area, right, then we can understand that while ADA is way down here, Bitcoin was effectively, in the upper half, right? So that made ADA itself not look very attractive because while Bitcoin was looking bullish, ADA was basically doing nothing. So the conditions that we set forward were that, first of all, it is interesting that it broke this white downtrend, right? So if we just take all the way from this kind of master wick all the way at the all-time high and bring it all the way down, then we can see that in fact it had broken out of that to almost nothing, to do almost nothing except bump its head into this lower diagonal that most people wouldn't even notice, but which I mentioned is very important because ADA can just launch off of that price. Do you see what I'm seeing? Every time it gets on top of this diagonal, it just launches, touch here, this basically has a launch here, and it gets suppressed by whatever's overhead. So in this case, it got suppressed by this purple line as well as the diagonal itself when it moved into this lower triangle. And the purple line is just a little bit more of a moderate consideration. You can see we got limited here, we got limited here, we got limited here. Both the white line and the purple line got limited here. And then as you can see, this purple line is pretty real, right? I didn't imagine this because we also got limited in this area, and once again, you can see that it attempted to break out. This would have been back when I was reviewing it. We were probably in this area, and it got rejected. And so the first condition was that we needed to see it break out of that purple line, and then it had to maintain a bullish posture and break out of this wedge, right? Break out of this distributive wedge and not re-enter it. So as you can see, ADA has both met that condition, made a higher low, and it has also busted out of this wedge. So it's broken the purple line and it's broken the white line. And the next thing that I want to see ADA do is hold on to 49 cents and then basically take out this previous high. And we're going to have a higher high. And hopefully that means that it will print a higher low from this low. What we don't want to see ADA do is go like this, make a higher high, and then perhaps, fail and it just be a fake out. And perhaps, this was just all, some type of, just kind of fake out to the downside, right? So that would be terrible. But if we could perhaps do something like this, make that higher high, and then make a higher low, that would look extremely good, where we have the higher high, and then we have the higher low. And now we have an uptrend on ADA after basically months and months and months and months of downtrend, right? And where could this perhaps take us to? Well, we can perhaps just use these fibs. So maybe it could take us to the 786. Perhaps we could get to the golden zone up here. Maybe have some type of relief rally, something like this, and perhaps double bottom, or who knows how the chart may go. Obviously there's a lot of macro that goes into this. And so, I don't really want to project where ADA could go. It looks incredibly weak. But if we do an update just on, let's see, the weekly, then we can see that we are perhaps getting the opportunity for some bullish, directional volatility. We could be contracting to the upside. Yeah, with a slight positive curvature on the Stokes, suggesting that we're going to get a corrective move here. It may not be the full reversal to take us to a bull run, but perhaps we could get some type of corrective move to the upside. I did mention last time on the review of ADA that the hope that we had was that it had this little tiny baby, positive momentum on it. And of course, last time it did that, and this one was even more pathetic than last time, but the last time that it did it, it was really a disappointment, just utter failure. And so the hope is that this time it's for real, right? And that these blue lines can continue to grow and that perhaps ADA could gain some momentum. And what we do see here is just ignore these blue and green lines on that. Really what I want to see from the money flow is I want to see the green line itself, this kind of a squiggly line, pointed in an upward direction. It is pointed in an upward direction, but it's extremely weak and the red is much stronger. So this is not really a great look. Let's go ahead and look at the daily. Yeah, so on the daily, we do have a positive crossing, but it is in that very weak zone. The ADX is plummeting, and so this tells me it's not a very strong trend. And so I'm going to have to just watch this space. Ideally, what we want to see is the ADX turn up as this green, shoots up. Something a little bit more like this, but with the green continuing to go with it. And just haven't seen that on ADA in quite some time. So, the strength of this move may not necessarily be what people would like. As you can see with other coins, some coins are just taking off. They're just rocketing to the sky. But ADA itself, just taking very, very slow baby steps. But the good news, guys, the good news on ADA, for those of you who are Cardano lovers, is that we have broken those very key sets of diagonal resistances that we needed to break in order to just clear our overhead for the potential for continuation to the upside. And now we just have that boss of 49 cents to make that higher high, and hopefully we come down and it's not a fake out, but we use this diagonal as support to push up, and that would be a higher low. And that would give us our bullish uptrend, which in the past, when we've pushed off of this diagonal line, has resulted in some pretty nice moves. Okay, so I don't want you to dismiss that. Whenever we caught that line, we were able to push up on a pretty good move. And this one was 26%. This one obviously was to the moon. This one was 35%. This one was 60%. So, hey, could we get a little push, perhaps 25, perhaps 40% to a maybe 65-cent area? Perhaps. And maybe we could start looking at this entire range again, where we have visited the range high, the range low, and perhaps we can reach the range high yet again.
What should I search?
Not sure why my phone is searching for things. But let's go ahead and just jump to the local level just to see if we can just get any more clarity on what's going on here. Oops, sorry about the drawing tool. And it does just look like it's bullishly printing. All right, guys, I'm not going to go too much into detail here. We do have this kind of resistance area around 48 cents. And so if you do want to take some profit between 48 to 49 cents, you would be forgiven for that. Perhaps it could actually just reach this area and then come back down, right? Let's see, on the hourly, we are starting to get a little bit burnt out. There is a fair chance that our Stokes will turn down there. But overall, our momentum remains good. There does seem to be a little bit. No, this bearish drive perhaps was just in this area. Yeah, maybe just a short-term pullback coming up, and then we'll take it from there. All right, guys, that was ADA. I hope that helps you make some decisions. Of course, it would have been brilliant to have caught that breakout and then taken this nice little juicy 6% play on that higher low. But you can do that with any of these teeny tiny moves. Of course, this channel is primarily about the big moves, so I'm not too concerned about those teeny tiny moves, but when a small move is 5 to 10%, it can still be worth it depending on how you're trading. So this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this bigger move, and hopefully we get something like that if the market conditions allow, if the stock market allows, if Bitcoin allows. That was your alpha for the day. Stay safe and happy trading.